Welcome into Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. Thanks for being with us. My name is Madelyn Burke, alongside the Super Bowl champion and co-host of the Eli Manning Show, Shaun O'Hara. Phone number here is 201-939-4513, or find us on Twitter at #GiantsChat. As a reminder, you can find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and giants.com/podcast. I saw, Shaun, your reaction when I introed you. You're like, oh, all right, that's a new one. We got to give the people all of your accomplishments and accolades.
Yeah, I mean, that one definitely is up there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's cream of the crop right there.
Naturally.
I just always love, like, co-host of a show, and I was just chuckle at that because I'm like, the fact that Eli and I have a show is so beyond both of us. Like, I don't think either one of us, when we were teammates or playing, like, ever thought, hey, we should do a show together. I use the term show as a very loose show. But yeah, it is fun. It's a great show. It's a great opportunity to just ham it up. Like, we are just having a ball. And it's been really cool just kind of getting to meet some different people. It's not all football.
Yeah.
Some of the guests are, actors, golfers, comedians. So it's great. Tune in. If you're looking for a laugh.
Season 4 coming soon. And by season 4, maybe not season 4, maybe season 5, when we get one for the thumb, will we get like an "and Shaun O'Hara" in the title? Like, is that, or...
That's a little bit of a sensitive subject because
okay.
I don't know if you saw the teaser for season 4, but Eli duped me. He said that I was getting top billing. I was going to be a part of the title. Mm-hmm. We even had a press conference, and he pulled the rug out for me again.
I can feel the pain.
He's my Newman.
You had some pain in those eyes, Kunu.
Yeah, it's my own fault for trusting him.
Newman!
You know what it's like? I feel like Talladega Nights. Yeah. I'm Cal. Just like maybe one time, maybe I can win a race.
Just one time.
Yeah, but then that means that I can't win. We're like, yeah, you're right. I'm just gonna bury that down deep down inside. Never bring it up again.
I mean, we're like 3 minutes into the show. We've already got Talladega Nights. We got Seinfeld references. We got the Eli Manning Show. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live with Shaun and Maddie. It's a Wednesday. We've got a lot to unpack. The Giants are going to hit the practice field pretty soon here as they turn the page, get ready for Cleveland. Another road game, a tough road game, but of course coming off a week 2 loss that feels different than week 1, Shaun, but it still, stings nonetheless. Yeah,
it's definitely, it's always tough when you lose, but the Giants are inventing new ways to lose games, and it's not the same old L every single week. This loss felt different because they played better. There was production. The offense moved the ball. They scored 3 touchdowns. That was something that they really struggled with in week 1. I thought the offense looked great running the football.
I got to say, too, that the 3 touchdowns, the touchdown on the opening drive was the first time the Giants had scored a touchdown on the opening drive of a football game in 27 games. That snapped the longest active streak in the NFL. So putting an end to that streak is, getting the monkey off the back there. But scoring touchdowns, like you said, a priority.
That's huge. And we talked this exact time last week. We talked about being on the road, starting fast. Mm-hmm. If you can score a touchdown on your opening drive on the road like that, that's huge. It gives a huge boost to your defense, certainly confidence to the offense. But I thought the way that they played, it was very balanced. Devin Singletary was doing a great job on the ground. A lot of big holes open up front. So shout out to the offensive line. I thought they blocked their butts off in both the run game and the pass protection. And I'm saying the Giants invented new ways to lose a game. The fact that they lost their kicker on the opening kickoff. Now, Austin Eckler takes it 98 yards for a touchdown. Graham Gano, in giving chase, blows his hammy out, which has nothing to do with the tight groin that he had going into it. But that right there, just basically offensively, now you have a totally different shift. All right, now we have to go for 2. Like, do we trust Jamie Gillum to make the extra points, and then at the end of the game to not be able to go for a field goal? Like, it really handcuffed them, and it was a challenge. But
I will say, though, in that second touchdown drive for the Giants, if they did have a healthy Graham Gano, they're in field goal range on 4th down. They're probably settling for the 3 instead of going for it on 4th and then subsequently scoring a touchdown on that drive. So as much as we'd like to say, well, if there was a kicker in the game, they would have gotten, the extra point here and there. But they might not have been in the same situation. They might not have scored the same touchdowns because the scenario and the complexion of the game would have been different.
Yeah, you're right. And as I'm watching the game and I'm saying, okay, if you're Daniel Jones and you're Brian Dable and you say, hey, we don't have a kicker, so the field goal is actually off the table, it almost gives you another down. Mm-hmm. So it's like, hey, you know what? Even if we just get 3 yards on 1st and 2nd down, like we now have 2 more downs to try to get that 1st down. So I think it makes you a little bit more aggressive, which probably helped them. But they were in a position to win the football game. And, really, I think the one thing that jumped out at me, aside from, the drop by Malik Neighbors, who had a phenomenal game, I think he was rookie of the week this week for the NFL. That drop on 4th down was huge. But defensively, the struggles to get Jaden Daniels down, like they had 5 sacks in the game. They should have had 8.
Yeah.
And those 3rd and longs of not being able to get off the field, I think that was probably the most disheartening part of it. 3rd and 14, you should be getting off the field. Like, you got to find a way to stop him.
That one play, Micah McFadden had his hands on him, all over him, and it's just like he just squirted out of there. Like, there were a lot of plays, and not just with Jaden Daniels, but tackling in general, in which it felt like Giants defenders got their hands on the guy but couldn't bring him down. And I know that a lot of that, people will say, oh, well, they're not as physical in training camp. They're not practicing at live speed and whatnot, but no teams are. So how do you ramp that up and address that, and especially with the rules of practice and whatnot?
The only way to really replicate it is playing games.
Yeah.
And, it's not just the Giants that struggle with that. You watch the Monday Night Football game, Eagles-Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons couldn't tackle, the Eagles, and vice versa. Like, there was a lot of missed tackles. We call it sloppy September.
Yeah.
We're still in it. So the tackling is definitely sloppy. There's nothing more frustrating for Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, or any defensive coordinator in the NFL. You call a blitz and you get a guy unblocked, and it should be a sack, and the guy runs out of it, ends up being an 8-yard scramble because you didn't make the tackle. Now, Micah McFadden did miss some time. He strained his groin in the preseason, so he missed some opportunities with the live tackling. So that the game day speed, it's always faster. Even if you go full speed in practice and try to replicate it, it's just not the same. So that's what we're seeing a lot of around the NFL, a lot of missed tackles, a lot of yards after contact for running backs, receivers, and for quarterbacks. But those were a couple of the biggest things that kind of jumped out defensively, just the ability to tackle the football. But there was a lot of good, too. There was a lot of good that came out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, going into Cleveland's a tough place to play on the road. The Browns are 1-1 to start the season. They lost week 1 at home to the Cowboys, even though they only gave up 19 points in that one. They won week 2 against Jacksonville, even though, they had, 13 penalties for 100 yards, the Browns did. And, we know that their tackle situation is a little bit up in the air. They've got 2 of their tackles returning to practice today. But, a lot of pressure was able to get on Deshaun Watson. Can the Giants capitalize on that, especially defensively? And, looking at this tape from week 2 against Washington and say, we need to close out, we need to capitalize on playing against another team that does have the proclivity to shoot themselves in the foot, much like Washington did with all the penalties, and does have the proclivity to give up, some access to the quarterback, much like Washington did. How can they learn from week 2 and say, all right, we're going to be better in this one? And perhaps, force a different outcome.
Yeah, I think you're going to see the biggest growth from the Giants and every football team, from weeks 1 to week 3. And those first 2 games, there's a lot that people are trying to figure out. And, you're adjusting to the speed and the new scheme, all those aspects. This is a big game defensively because you just mentioned Jedrick Wills, their left tackle, and Jack Conklin did not play in the first 2 games. Mm-hmm. So Deshaun Watson, he has not looked great. He's been sacked a ton of times. I think he got sacked 5 times last week. So pressure on the quarterback has been available, and I think that's something that both Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns are going to try to take advantage of. I think when you look at this offense for the Browns, they have not been very explosive. Amari Cooper has 27 yards through 2 games, and he's coming off of a career year where he had over 1,250 yards receiving last year on 72 catches. So they haven't gotten him going. Jerry Jeudy is their leading receiver. So offensively, they're not running on all cylinders, so it's a great opportunity to come out on the road and try to silence that crowd. No doubt the dog pound's going to be barking. They're going to be fired up.
Yeah.
They're trying to support their team, but really the team, the side of the ball that has to wear the hard hat in this game is the offense, and specifically the offensive line, because Zadarius Smith on one side and Myles Garrett on the other. Those are two game wreckers, and you've got to have a way to silence them. Don't let them get in the backfield. I think Brian Dable does a great job of keeping tight ends in to chip, and he'll do like a double chip protection where you'll have two tight ends that will run through the outside shoulder of those defensive ends to kind of put sideboards on them to help your tackles out when you want to try to get the ball down the field. So we saw this offense look totally different with big chunk plays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were a number of big chunk plays. The neighbors, Wan'Dale Robinson had one. Darius Slayton had a big pass play. And then we had two big runs over 13 yards with Devin Singletary. So
and
those
could
big
have been
chunk
three
plays.
if that ball didn't get punched out.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. He had the ball in the right hand, and he was running left. He cut back to the left. If he had had a chance to switch that ball over, it probably never happens. But I think that's really the key right here defensively. This Browns defense is aggressive. Man, they are coming downhill. Their linebackers run really well. JOK, Jordan Hicks had a big game for the Cleveland Browns. When you look at I talked about the front. Dalvin Tomlinson, former New York Giant, is up there as well. They get after you. And Jim Schwartz, he is aggressive. He likes his linebackers running downhill. And one of the reasons why they can run downhill is he loves the wide nine technique. For those of you that don't know what a wide nine technique is, their tight end side defensive end gets out super wide. And basically his job is just to push that tight end back and basically bookend every play. Nothing gets outside of them. So it funnels everything to those linebackers. So this is a little bit of a different defense to work against. Mm-hmm. That's why today, you mentioned they're going out to practice. That's going to be a point of emphasis. On Wednesdays, you do inside run, 9-on-7 drill, which is, hey, everybody in the building knows we're running the football. We have to run against this 7-man, 8-man front offensively, and it's tough. If you can run the ball in 9-on-7 in practice on Wednesdays, it makes Sundays a heck of a lot easier. But that's going to be the challenge is how do they handle that wide nine technique, and how do they handle the speed of those linebackers?
Yeah, absolutely. And, of course, Wednesday, the first day of practice and preparation for week 3 for both of these teams. Some injury reports coming out of both camps right here. DeJuan Jones, he won't practice today due to a knee injury in Cleveland.
DeJuan's the right tackle. He's been filling in for Jack Conklin.
But Jack Conklin and Wills, who we mentioned missed the first 2 weeks of the season, will be back at practice. So we'll see how that affects their game availability on Sunday. And then, of course, tight end David Njoku for the Cleveland Browns is ruled out for Sunday's game. Brian Dable at the podium talking to media saying that Darius Muasau is returning to practice after that knee injury. Not quite yet. Nick McLeod not quite returning to practice just yet, so unclear what the Giants' corner, his status will be this week. And we'll continue to monitor that as Dable's media availability continues to unfold. But now we should turn our attention. First, want to make sure Giants fans go and subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features long-form interviews with Giants players, coaches, and front office staff, past and present. Plus, hear from the best analysts covering Big Blue and the NFL. Search for Giants Huddle and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or go to giants.com/podcast. And don't forget, if you are on Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star positive review for all of our Giants podcasts. 201-939-4513 is the phone number as we head to the phone lines. Holding the longest so far, Dominic in Newark. Dominic, you're on with Shaun and Madelyn.
Hey, how you doing, Madelyn?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. So I'm trying to figure out, how to get the pass rush generating going again, and I'm also trying to, after that first week and all the stars in the house and laying an egg like that really hurt, but I'm really hurt to see the pass rush not working, and I'm hoping they get right back on track and get Brian Burns to break through and get Kayvon to finally hit that sack. I'm just wondering what you guys think about how this is all going to take place.
Yeah, great question, Dom. Appreciate the call. And I think first and foremost, you got to stop the run. When you look back at the game against Washington, over 200 yards rushing, and I think Brian Robinson averaged 7.8 yards a carry. So that's first and foremost. If you want to rush the passer, you got to earn the right.
And 7.8 yards per carry is ridiculous,
that's
right?
Sick. Yeah,
4.5, 5, that's respectable. 7.8 is just, yeah.
Yeah, and some of it's inflated because Jaden Daniels, there were some scramble yards there. But I think the pass rush comes after you stuff the run, you get him in 3rd and long, but it's not just about getting to the quarterback and harassing him and pressuring him. You got to get him down. Mm-hmm. So Deshaun Watson, he's athletic. Now, he's not moving like the Deshaun Watson that we all probably remember from 4 or 5 years ago. He seems like a different kind of player. He's not that same guy that we saw when he was in Houston. So I think for Deshaun Watson, the big thing with him is pressure him, try to get him into bad situations, get him to accelerate his decision-making process, and then hopefully you can harass him and hurry him into a mistake. But I also think, if you're Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns, and even Dexter Lawrence, the fact that they're kind of in flux with offensive line, and even if this is Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin's first game back, like they're going to be a little bit rusty. So I think you've got to look to take advantage of that, but you first have to stop the run.
Right, and you look at the way that the Giants were getting pressure on the quarterback in week 2. Very different, obviously very different caliber of offensive line, offensive tackle that they were facing from week 1 to week 2. But a lot of the pressure was coming from safeties and linebackers.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I mean, there was 5 sacks, and not one of them was by a D lineman.
Right.
It was Micah. It was Okereke.
Drew Phillips.
Drew had one. I think Pinnock had 2. Mm-hmm. So that is also just lets you know how athletic Jaden Daniels was, because there were times where guys had a chance to tackle him, and he just ran by him. He was so fast, and his acceleration is so quick. So that's a challenge. The Giants started out against Washington with a little bit of a spy rush. They actually had Isaiah Simmons lined up over the center, and his job on the snap of the ball was just to shadow him. Mm-hmm. And then personnel-wise, things kind of changed. And then you get into like 3rd and long, and instead of having Simmons out there, you wanted another corner or another safety. So you want another cover guy. So that kind of changed. But they could end up doing that same kind of thing with Isaiah Simmons if Deshaun Watson ends up, scrambling and running out and his legs become an issue. But this is a kind of a new offense for the Cleveland Browns too. Remember, Ken Dorsey is the offensive coordinator now. Alex Van Pelt was the offensive coordinator last year. And he was one of the reasons why they were throwing for so many yards, and it was Joe Flacco in there, that was slinging it. This offense is a little bit different, and so Ken Dorsey now in his first year, it's taken them some time to get some rhythm. Deshaun Watson has been the most pressured quarterback in the league through the first 2 weeks.
Right. So 25 pressures allowed week 1 against Dallas, 13 allowed week 2 at Jacksonville.
Yeah. So they're struggling in that capacity, and. Look, if you're the Giants, let's keep it up. You don't want them to get right this week.
Right. Doom, 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 doom. Let's get that under pressure going right there.
Oh, I thought that was Vanilla Ice.
Oh, yeah.
Dun,
Stop.
dun, dun, dun,
Collaborate
dun.
and listen. Let's get to the quarterback before, I don't know.
I'm
trying to make a remix on the fly. This is why.
Beachfront Avenue.
201-939-4513 is the phone number. Giants fans, take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2024 season. To learn more about all the exclusive member benefits, visit giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. As we head back to the phones, Kevin in Arizona on line 2. We got a call from the west, not quite coast, but western time zone. Kevin, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing well.
I have a quick question about punting and field goals. What do they do in practice?
In terms of practicing special teams?
When everybody's practicing, what exactly do they do?
There are several special teams periods during practice, and so they have, individuals, they have 7-on-7, they have multiple special teams periods throughout the practice day.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm still trying to figure out what they do too.
But you're right, a lot of it they have stand to the side.
No, they have
the point I'm trying to make is, this is the point I'm trying to make. The punter should be kicking field goals. The field goal kicker teaching them how to do it. By the time the season's over, he should be pretty good at it. Right or wrong?
I think that there are a lot of punters that can kick in backup situations. And look, Jamie Gillum tried. He went out there and he kicked one. I didn't think they felt confident that they could make a long field goal, or, and at that point, once you missed one, now it's like, all right, we're chasing points and we're trying to get it back. But just because you can punt doesn't mean you can kick. That it is a different art form.
Well, and also there's a difference between having the ability to do so, Kevin. Like Jamie Gillen showed last year, he made a 40-yard field goal when needed, and he has the ability to do so. But because he doesn't do it on a regular basis, it's not quite muscle memory, gimme, just like it would be for Graham Gano or kickers around the league. So he is capable of it, but not as reliable. And if he was consistent in kicking, he probably would be a kicker.
Yeah, it's not a moot point though.
Right.
Like with what you're saying, Kevin. I hear what you're saying, and I think every team, they have, hey, what's our emergency kicker plan? And Jamie Gillum was that. And then I think as the game progressed, and it was, hey, we got to go for 2. We got to make up for that point that we missed. And then they didn't have a chance later on that final drive to go for a possible game-winning field goal. Maybe they would have asked Gillum to kick another one. The biggest thing that I think is a little bit different, and maybe this is just me noticing it because I'm a former long snapper, so the battery to me is very important. Jamie Gillum kicks left-handed. So now you have a different holder because Gillum is the holder for Gano. So now you have to have a backup holder, and then Gillum is kicking from the other side, which changes things as well. He kicks lefty with the field goal. So that's definitely a part of the game. It's a part of preparation. Hey, in worst case scenario, what are we going to do? I think back to the Houston Texans last year. They actually had a backup running back that kicked a field goal. I think I'm trying to think of his name. Is it Okonkwo or something?
Not
he kicked
Dare Ogunbowale.
Ogunbowale, yes.
Ogunbowale. He kicked a field goal and maybe an extra point, and he was kind of like, I guess he had done it in practice, and so they had a similar thing where the kicker was injured, and they were like, all right, let's give it a shot, and it worked out. But
see, what you're saying is they should have a plan for this. They should practice it in practice. I mean, what do they do all day long? Just punt and, kick field goals. Well, the field goal guy should be teaching the punter how to do it. You have a different guy to hold the ball for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and my guess is they do practice that, and they have practiced it, and that's why they put Jamie Gillum out there to try.
Right.
And then when he missed it, they're like, all right, now we got to go for 2 the next time. So then he didn't get the opportunity. So I think that was their plan, was Gillum's going to kick the extra points. And, we know he can kick. He's got a great leg. He just missed it.
Right.
And, there's a lot of variables with that. So the fact that he didn't get another shot is because of the way the game was, and the game went down and they had to go for 2.
Right. So even like what you said is important, though, to how they hold the ball. So they should, if he's going to kick a field goal, then they should have the guy to hold ball for him.
Right.
I mean,
so I
don't understand what they could possibly do all day long.
Well, so the answer to your question is they did practice that, and that's what they did, and it didn't work. He missed,
Right.
So it didn't work out. But it's not that they didn't practice it, and it's not like they went into the game like, well, we don't know. We never practiced it. We never thought of it. Like they did. So, I appreciate your question, but like they're out there practicing, and they're kicking. They're out there the whole time. They're not on their Nintendo Switch. They're not on their phones. They're not scrolling Instagram. Like they're out there working and honing their craft. They do practice that, and Gano, can punt as well. And I know if the punter goes down, like Gano would go out there and he would be the punter. But if he shanks one, like you're not going to say, well, what was he doing all the time? He shanked it. Like, guess what? On a live rush, things happen a little bit differently. That's like making a 10-foot putt on the practice range and then going out and trying to make a 10-foot putt to win the Masters.
Right.
A little bit of a different situation.
Yeah. Appreciate the call, Kevin. Go ahead.
Actually, the line seems a little better this year. What do you think?
100%. I mean, they're playing better. Number one, it helps that they're healthy. So last year we lost Andrew Thomas on the first drive. Boom. So now we got our backup left tackle. We lost a guard in training camp. 2 of them actually by the first week. So we had a backup guard and a backup left tackle by week 2. So number one, they're healthy. I think Jermaine Illuminor has been phenomenal. He's been so consistent. And it's almost like an afterthought. You don't even have to worry about, okay, is he going to whiff? Is he going to be on the ground? So that's been a huge improvement. I think Runyon's been a very big improvement. I think Van Roten has been a really good pickup. He was somebody they picked up during training camp. He was hanging out in Long Island, drinking beer, and they were like, hey, can you come back and play? And he actually ended up playing more center in the preseason than guard. But across the board, they are so much more consistent. And the pass protection, I can't tell you how many times when I'm watching the film, I pressed pause when Daniel Jones set up the throw, and there wasn't anybody within 3 yards of him. The cushion and the picket fence that was in front of him, we haven't seen that in a long time. So I think there were a number of big-time throws that Daniel Jones had that he made, and he was able to step up into the pocket, step into those throws. He had a clean pocket, and I think he showed how accurate he could be when someone's not drilling him or he's not running away from it. So they definitely look better, and I think the run blocking looks better too. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the call, Kevin. Great points, too. And, it is interesting because he does raise a great point of, hey, they should be prepared for a situation and practice it. But there is only a limited amount of time that they're out there on the practice field. And most of these guys are honing their skills rather than just in case of emergency if I have to do this skills.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask. And, I know this from experience. I was the backup long snapper.
Right.
So during practice, Ryan Keel was our long snapper, and then it was Zach Diassi. They would go and they would take all the reps. I would maybe get one rep, or I would have to stay after practice sometimes to get my practice reps as a long snapper, because if Zach went down or Ryan Keel went down, I would have to go in there and snap. So I would get a couple of reps of that with the holder, with the kicker, just to work on timing and battery. So it's definitely something that you practice. But you know what, just like anything, you practice it and you go out in the game. Can you replicate that? Can you do it when it matters most? That didn't happen. But I know we were giving a shout out to the offensive line plan. I want to give Carmen Brasillo a quick shout out.
Yes.
He's the new offensive line coach this year, as many of you know, for the Giants. I think he has done a great job. So you have to give, to me, there's two big factors in there. Number one, the Giants, they upgraded the position with John Runyon and with Jermaine Illuminor. So the play has been better. They're healthy. And I think that Carmen Brasillo has done a great job with getting that unit to play cohesively. I didn't see any mental errors. There weren't any whiffs. It looked like functional football, which it should.
Yeah, and it's got to be helpful too, the familiarity and the consistency. Jermaine Illuminor and Greg Van Roten played alongside one another in Las Vegas under offensive line coordinator Carmen Brasillo. So just having that right side of the line already with that familiarity, as much as it's emphasized, hey, offensive linemen have to be familiar with the man to each side of them. Coming into a new team and a new system with your buddy right next to you, that's got to be helpful for both those guys.
Yeah, that chemistry helps in all aspects. Certainly in the run game too, because you're constantly combo blocking, and the right guard and the right tackle are usually working together in unison. So when your footwork is together and you've got that chemistry, it definitely helps.
Yeah. Giants official connected TV streaming app Giants TV brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and on the Giants mobile app. 201-939-4513 is the phone number as we head back to the phone lines. Cliff in New York, you're holding on line one. Cliff, you're on Big Blue Kickoff Live with Shaun and Madelyn.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I had a pretty good time watching the game. I really did. The way we moved the ball and finished, reminded me of Coughlin. We only needed to score one more touchdown, and we had a couple of chances. And that wouldn't have been. They didn't look like they could get the ball in the end zone on us at all. And there was obviously a lot of negatives on the defense, but which I have a couple of questions about. But I just wanted to point out also, I have the radio on, so I can hear what Carl has to say and Bob Papa. And Carl was giving Kayvon credit for having an impact in the game, And when I looked at the stats, I said, 4 tackles. Well, 2 of them were TFLs, man. And, how many sacks are actually...
What? We lost Cliff. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you hear me what I was saying?
We had you until how many sacks are actually?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of sacks that aren't, 8 or 10 yards. They're 3 yards. And a typical TFL is 3 yards. It has to be at least 1 to be tackled for loss. And Kayvon had 2. That to me, that's as good as sacks, unless it's, a strip sack. And puts him way back. Just wanted to give him some props because he's not bursting through like he did against them 2 years ago in the end zone and falling on the ball for a touchdown. But I don't think we've seen the last of that kind of play from him.
Yeah. Well, and Shaun, you can probably speak to this too. Is that you can affect a game in ways that doesn't always translate to a box score.
Yeah, and sometimes. Sacks can be a little misleading because you can get a sack because the other guy got the pressure and forced him to step up right into you. And so you ended up getting the sack even though you weren't the first guy there. So, and look, Kayvon Thibodeau, he played better. He had some splash plays. The tackles for loss, I agree. Those are huge, especially if they happen on first and second down because now they're behind the sticks. I think those are all good things. For Thibodeau, I think the biggest thing for him is just being more consistent, because what we've seen from him is nothing, or man, he made some really big plays. Like the game last year, or it might have been his rookie year against Baltimore, where he caused the fumble on Lamar, sack fumble, and it's like, man, okay, man, this is what we expect, and then like he disappear for a game or two. So I think that's one of the things, and that's not just Kayvon Thibodeau. That's a lot of young players. It's how can I be consistent week to week and continue that production? But sacks, defensive linemen will tell you they come in bunches. Ask Aiden Hutchinson about that. I mean, he just had 4.5 in one game. So, if you can get that one game that really boosts that sack production, it's great. But, Kayvon had 2 quarterback pressures as well. And I think one of the big things any D lineman will tell you is it's not just, you can't just get there and hit the quarterback. You got to take him down. You can't miss him. You can't let him break free. But, yeah, Kayvon Thibodeau, definitely a better game from him. I think week 1 we talked about it. He was going against Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill, 2 of the best tackles. So this could be a good challenge for him if Jedrick Wills ends up playing for the Cleveland Browns, and if Jack Conklin plays. They're both Pro Bowl caliber tackles.
Yeah, and Carl is always talking about setting the edge too, and he's very critical when that doesn't happen, and when it does, he gives people credit. I think Kayvon does that pretty well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think, again, it's just be more consistent, and I think he's striving for that, and I think he will get there. I think he does a good job against the run, and I think he's still learning. Look, setting the edge sounds simple, but sometimes, depending on what offense you're playing, and that was Cliff Kingsbury, who does a really good job of finding ways to get guys outside in space, whether it's a quick screen pass or a quick little jet sweep. So you're going to see that week in and week out, and it's all kind of tailor-made based on what the offense that you're facing that week is. Yeah,
well, the new DC Shane Bowen, I don't think is doing so terrible. He was supposed to be good in the red zone, and he has been. But there was also, I don't remember exactly how they said it, but when they asked him what kind of defense he played, it wasn't just the X's and O's part that he answered. He said something about an attitude that they brought. Do you remember what that was? Because I'm thinking.
I think you said violent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Violent was the word that I think everybody jumped on, and they were like, "Wow, okay, let's get that." And aggressive and violent, and I think that's what you want. That's what you want on your defense. I mean, the Giants championships that are hanging up in MetLife right now are because we had a violent defense. So I think that they're getting there. Right now, the violence has really been by the linebackers and the safeties and Pinnock and Drew Phillips, and I think that's you can kind of see the impact that those guys have had.
Do you think the false starts that they committed in the red zone might have been from the violence of being established?
That Washington committed?
Yeah.
I think some of that too is you've got a rookie quarterback.
Right.
You know what? The cadence can sometimes be different. I mean, they were at home, so there's no excuse for that when you're at home to be doing that.
Although it was a bit loud there, and I think sometimes, you saw some of the players going like this to say, hey, quiet down, the offense is at play, and I think fans heard that as, okay, ratchet it up. Or maybe it was just the Giants fans in attendance. But
yeah, I think the Commanders are playing 17 away games this year. I don't know if they have the home field advantage just yet. There's been a lot of turmoil down there, but I think that some of that too is week 2. It's like you're seeing a lot of bad football. You're seeing a lot of sloppy pre-snap penalties and just guys kind of working out the kinks. So I think Sam Cosmi had a couple of penalties for them. So definitely they definitely struggled with, I think, the cadence, the verbal cadence, and then also the silent count too. I think there was a couple of mistakes with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I was hoping we maybe were intimidating them a little bit.
I like the way you see it, though, Cliff.
Yeah, Yeah, go for it, Cliff. I'm with you. I'll co-sign that.
Yeah. Now, one thing that came out of the interviews with Okereke and Dable was, we got to tackle better and doing a better job with run fit. I don't know what that means. Did you hear that?
Yeah, the run fits, defensively speaking, is who has what gap. And when you hear run fits, it's okay if you're in an under defense and the Mike linebacker has the front side A gap, the Will linebacker has the backside B gap, and then you have everybody has a gap, A, B, and C. But then the run fit also includes the safety that's coming down in the box. So if he comes down, he may have the C gap. He can't all of a sudden bite into the B gap and stick his nose down there. He's got to stay in his lane, so to speak. So that's really what the run fits are. And if you get two guys in one gap, now all of a sudden it creates a huge void in the other gap, and that's usually where the running back will find it and will hit and will pop. You were talking about Thibodeau setting the edge, and that's part of the run fit. So if you set the edge and you force them back inside, that's where everybody else should be fitting in to their gaps to plug up all the holes. So that's what run fit means. And again, I think that's something that comes with time during the season. The fact that it's week 2, look, there's a lot of teams that have a guy in the wrong hole. They have the wrong guy in the wrong gap. It could be a corner coming up trying to fill in run support. So it's 11 guys working together cohesively as a unit. That takes time.
And understanding your assignment in each scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
And knowing's just half the battle.
Right.
As G.I. Joe used to say.
Yes, G.I. Joe used to say.
You gotta fit in the run game, and then you gotta tackle them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was really encouraged by the OL. I mean, on the other shows, we've been saying, the best we've seen, we can't remember, maybe 5 years, and that's just their second game, That's extremely encouraging, and I don't see that going backwards. I think that's going to keep getting better. And one thing I saw is it Jared Allen that Washington has in the middle on defense?
Jonathan Allen.
Jonathan Allen. Yeah. I saw. I'm only watching on TV. I'm not studying film, but I saw JMS on him one-on-one doing a great job. John Michael Schmitz on him, and that really. I thought that was terrific. He was keeping him away from Daniel by himself. And I just thought that just caught my eye. And I know one of the things we're looking for was a leap forward from JMS. I don't know if it's too soon to tell.
No, I think John Michael looks good. He missed some time in training camp with a shoulder injury. But I know this, for John Michael Schmitz, for Runyon, and when you look at the offensive line for Greg Van Roten as well, Sundays are easy. If you're blocking Dexter Lawrence during the week, like you get to Sundays, it's like a day off. Yeah. But Jonathan Allen's been a very big disruptor for a long time. He signed a massive contract a year or two ago, and he's definitely been somebody that we've had a hard time slowing down. He's been a handful for us over the years. I think Washington, their defensive line looks different. They traded away Chase Young. Mm-hmm. Sweat's no longer there. So it looks a little bit different up front. But I thought John Michael Schmitz played well. I thought the whole offensive line did a great job on the road. The protection was great. I thought there was a lot of room to run. They did a great job with the double team blocks. There's still some things that they got to clean up. There could have been some bigger runs and some more efficient runs. But some of that is running back cuts too. It all is kind of working in concert together. But I think this offensive line, I agree with you, that they're much improved. And I know you said it feels like 5 years ago. It wasn't. It was just 2 years ago when they went on that playoff run. Right. And the offensive line played really well. So it definitely looks like we're heading in that direction, which is positive.
And thanks so much for the call, Cliff, and for the great points. Great chatting with you. And it is interesting, too, just how much health plays a role in that, and the availability is the best ability, things you say. But, last season, the players coming in and out of that unit so frequently and getting banged up. Now this season, not only elevating the play, elevating the coaching, but also the consistency so far, knock on wood. Hopefully, that can remain. Yeah,
I have an analogy. I always say offensive linemen, they're like the tires on your car, right? Yeah. Like nobody pays attention to the tires until they're flat, until you're straight on the side of the road and you got to get the jack out and you got to change the tire. It doesn't matter if you have 500 horsepower under the hood. If you've got an awesome sports car, if your tires are flat or they suck, you're not going anywhere.
And then if you're riding on one spare tire and the other three that are you're off kilter,
you look like you're about to just tip over. So case in point, look at the Cleveland Browns. Like we just talked about, they're the most pressured quarterback in the league because they're missing their two best tackles, Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills. They still have 2 Pro Bowl guards, Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller. I think when you look at the fact that they still have those 2 guys, just having 2 different tackles changes things. So we saw that transpire last year, and it was just, it snowballed into a hot mess. But the one thing I always tell everybody, and I have to take my own advice, because like when I take my wife's car to get it serviced, they'll always say, hey, we got a couple tires that look a little low. You might want to replace them. And you're always like, when you say low, like how low?
Yeah.
Like is it like dangerous? Are they about to blow, or like do I really? And it's like, you know what? Invest in the tires. Put the damn tires on. Don't wait until you got a flat tire, because you're going to be kicking yourself saying, why didn't I invest in it? Why didn't I fix it when I had the chance?
That preventative care, invest in the good stuff so that it costs you less down the road when it blows.
And what also helps is having a full spare. You know, like if you have a donut, like get rid of the donut, put a full spare in, find a way, strap it to the top of your car if you have to, but nobody wants to ride on that donut. We eat donuts. We don't want to drive on them.
Especially offensive linemen. We are all in on this analogy. I think it's a great way of putting it, though, and it makes so much sense, too. 201-939-4513 is the phone number as we go back to the phone lines. Phil in North Carolina. Phil, you're on with Shaun and Madelyn.
Yeah, hi, guys. I appreciate your work, Madelyn and Shaun, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. I have a couple of things. One is I haven't had time to comment on it, but what was frustrating about the previous game was that we already have a situation where, Graham Gano last year didn't, got rehurt when he was not quite right, and it cost us a game. And I just feel that that was I think that would have been, in my case, if I was deciding, that would have been an overriding factor of, I'm not going to take a chance. I'm going to have a backup, for the kicker when we had a empty spot. I was told that we only activated something like 52 or something. So that's my therapy for the week here. I was really frustrated, and I wanted just to get that off my chest. So thanks. The bigger picture question I have is are we better off than we were 3 years ago? And I'm not sure if we're a more talented team or a less talented team, to be honest. I guess we could go through position by position group, but the only thing I see as a change is that we are shifting our emphasis on like the offensive line, which I'm happy about. Investing in the offensive line, and we did see some benefits from that from last game. But I don't know if we're better off than 3 years ago, really, holistically.
Okay, so we could break it all down. I think when you look at 3 years ago, who were the receivers? We didn't have a Malik Neighbors, that's for damn sure. So we're right there out of the gate. We're better off. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is a heck of a player. He's got all kinds of ability. The offensive line is definitely better right now than it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Andrew Thomas, you guys were killing him, saying that he was a bust, and you guys were ready to throw him in the trash.
Now he's one of the best left tackles in the league.
Yeah, he's elite. He just signed a monster deal. So 3 years later, I think we're definitely better. Losing Saquon has been tough. I think it's tough to really wrap your head around it, because he was so explosive and he was such a big part of the offense. I think Devin Singletary has been even better than everybody thought he would be, and he's been more decisive, and he's done a great job
and he's also
making guys miss.
He's also contributed to pass protection as well. That block that he threw, and he picked up
on the blitz.
On the blitz the other day, like he's somebody who will lean in on that situation.
And that was Frankie Louvu. Like he's a hammer when he comes downhill on a blitz. So, look, we can go across the board and just kind of look at all that. I think defensively, we're faster. Bobby Okereke's a better linebacker than we had 3 years ago. I think when you look at our safeties right now, how active they are and how athletic and how physical they are, those guys are studs. I think Brian Birds is an upgrade at defensive end. So I definitely think that we are better. I think we're also healthier from a cap situation. 3 years ago, it was a disaster. Like we had zero money. We didn't even have money at the end of the season 3 years ago to sign players in week 17. That's how dire we were from a salary cap standpoint. I think if you look at the Giants roster as a whole, we are a younger football team, and that's good because that means that you're probably going to be healthier because you've got younger bodies. Graham Gano is the oldest guy on the team. So am I shocked that a 37-year-old guy blew his hammy out running a 40-yard dash? No. That happens. Aaron Rodgers blew his Achilles out. He's at the same age last year, so that happens. But the Giants are a young team, which is good because a lot of these guys are under contract for a few years, which really helps the health of your team. And I think going back to Saquon, that was big piece of that puzzle was, if we don't have Saquon here and we can use those funds elsewhere to make the team better at multiple positions, is that the right move? So I would say, yes, the Giants are better right now than they were 3 years ago.
Yeah, good point, Shaun. I do agree with. I'm pretty happy with Devin Singletary. I think and I do. The one thing that probably irks me the most is not necessarily letting Saquon go because we had to use that money for reallocation. But I think I would have preferred if we made an effort if we kept Xavier McKinney. I think I would have felt a lot better. And the other thing I would say is 3 years ago we did have Leonard Williams, and we do miss him. We miss another. We need another talented defensive tackle. So I hope we address those things. But thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Phil. Appreciate it. 201-939-4513 is the phone number. We've got the phone lines lighting up. Len in Maryland, you're on next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Len, how's it going?
Yeah, good. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
Hey, Shaun,
congratulations.
Congratulations. Top 100 list.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really cool.
I'll bet it is.
Very honored.
Yeah.
Very honored.
Yeah, oh, my goodness. Number 65. There were only 5 centers. There were only 5 centers on that 100 list.
Yeah.
You were one of them.
I know.
You're one of them.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I got a chance to talk to Bart Oates a little bit. He's been a friend of mine from my playing days with the Giants, and it was really cool to kind of follow in his footsteps as a Giants center. I think Mel Hine.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, now Mel Hine. Well, now you're talking top 10 guy.
Yeah,
top 5 guy.
I mean, the fact that a center was in the top 10 and that's the top 5, that's huge. That's great. So I think we all, we're all kindred spirits with that. But it's really cool. I feel very honored to be included in that group. And,
I bet you do.
What made it extra special was that our whole offensive line from that era made it in. Kareem McKenzie, Dave Deal, Richie Serra,
that was
Chris
fun.
Snee. So that was definitely a special time.
Yeah. Well, good for you, Shaun.
Thank you.
Good for you. All right, Cleveland Browns. I still get the adrenaline flow when I hear Giants and Browns going to play. I go back pretty far, Shaun, back to the 50s when they were our arch rival. There was a 10 or 12-year period of time there where, boy, there were some classic games and some unbelievably good football players, many of them on that 100 list, some of the best coaches of all time. It's just a great era. And I still feel it. I can't wait till Sunday. I want to get out there and play. Here's my defensive philosophy, and then I'll let you go. Find the ball carrier and arrive angry. Let's go, Giants.
I love it.
Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks so much, Len. Appreciate the call. Find the ball carrier and arrive angry. Print that one on a T-shirt. I like it.
Yeah. It's a great mindset. When you walk the halls here in the facility, there are a lot of messages that pop up, on screens. Back when I was playing, it was signs. Now we're a digital world, so we have screens that flash. But one of the things that jumps out is bite the ball. And that kind of goes with what Len is talking about, like arrive angry and bite the ball. And what they mean by that is put your face mask on the ball, try to create turnovers. We saw Drew Phillips kind of do that in week 1. But I like Len's passion. And, this is an interesting game for me because I played for the Cleveland Browns before I came to the Giants. So it's kind of like both of my alma maters. I obviously, my first 4 years in Cleveland, we lost a lot of football games. We went 3-13 my rookie year, longest season ever. Our bye week, Madelyn, my rookie year, was week 17. So we had to, not only were we a new franchise, it was. I don't know why you would want to do that, but so the Browns came back in 1999. 2000 was the second year. We got to show up to training camp a week earlier than the rest of the NFL because we were a new franchise, still considered new. So we reported like July 15th, I think, like the same week as the Hall of Fame game teams, but we didn't have a Hall of Fame game. So it was the longest training camp in the history of my life. July 14th, and then our first preseason game was like 3 weeks in. And then you just power through the season, and our bye week was week 17. So
wow,
we had to wait all the way to the end of the season. But we did make the playoffs in 2002, and I'll tell you, the Cleveland Browns, when they're winning, they're Browns backers and the dog pound. They are loud. They're fired up. So, yeah, I know that there's a big history with the Browns and the Giants. I feel like they're two of the like old school like flagship franchises in the NFL. And it'll definitely be a good game. Shout out to Phil Dawson, who's actually going in the Cleveland Browns Hall of Fame this weekend. He's being honored Saturday night at the stadium. He was a great kicker for a long time for the Cleveland Browns. And kicking in Cleveland, let me tell you, in December, like that is a challenge. Like Lawrence Tynes kicked some unbelievable kicks in Green Bay and in San Fran. But kicking in that stadium right next to Lake Erie in December, I don't know that I'd want to wish that on my worst enemies.
Yeah, that's cold and chilly, and what is it, the lake effect they call it?
The lake effect, yeah. The wind comes in. It's just, I mean, it chills you right to the bone.
Yeah. Not great. Not things we love. I mean, I love the nostalgia of the Cleveland Browns era, but I'm just going to say the Cleveland Browns didn't make you one of the franchise's 100th greatest players.
No, they did not. No. So, I mean, and like I said,
they missed the opportunity.
We didn't win a lot of games when I was there either, so I'm sure that they were happy to get rid of me at the time. But one man's trash is another man's treasure. My college buddies actually teased me when I came to sign to the Giants. They were like toasted to me, "Welcome to the NFL." Like they didn't count my first 4 years, which is kind of harsh. But yeah, they think I only played for the Giants. They didn't count Cleveland as one. But I loved Cleveland. It was a great city, great sports town.
Yeah.
And you know, I think when you're playing well, it's a fun city. Their fans are very, very loyal. Yeah. So it's always great, and it's always great to play there in September, as opposed to
December.
December. Yeah.
The Shaun O'Hara Bowl coming soon to a TV near you. Sunday, Giants, Browns. As we go back to the phone lines, 201-939-4513. We got Wilson in Roxbury. Wilson, you're on BBK. How's it going?
Hey, Madelyn, looking beautiful like always. Hey, Shaun.
Thank you.
How are you, man? You're a great Giant. Hey, Shaun, man, real quick. This guy's a professional, Shaun. Please don't tell me that, it's a left foot kicker, a right-handed holder, this, that. I mean, you're professional, man. I mean, Brian Dable gave up on this guy because he missed one extra point. He gave up on him. And you said that the only Giants find ways to lose. I can't agree with you more. Against Washington, last year against the Jets, against Buffalo, against the Rams. You know what all those games have in common? Horrendously coached team. Giants fans, we're done with Brian Dable. And I'm going to tell you something right now. If they lose against Sunday, if they lose against Cleveland, and they get embarrassed on national television with 50,000 Cowboys fans in the stadium, I don't know how you let this guy back on the building on Monday. If I'm wrong and they win against Cleveland and they somehow beat the Cowboys, which is like 1 in 1,000 odds that they'll do that, I'll be the first one to call and say, you know what, I was wrong about Brian Dable. Even though Brian Dable doesn't need my apologies, he could care less. But as a man, I would say I'm wrong. But I see this thing, the wheels falling off into such a disaster that I told this Johnny the other day, we have no hope. So I'm hoping against hope, but you know what? With all due respect, man, don't tell me that the kicker is a left footer and right hander. We don't want to hear that, man. I mean, he gave up on this guy after one kick, and I know it's a short time, but thank you again for taking my phone call. And if you can respond, I'll listen to off the air. Thank you.
Thanks for the call, Wilson.
All right, Wilson. I'm sorry, Wilson, to quote
Castaway.
Yeah. I think when you say he gave up on Gillum, I don't think that was the case. I think once he missed the first extra point, he said, now we got to go for 2. So I think he was chasing points at that moment. But look, I think Jamie Gillum would say, look, I can make that kick. I've made it before. I should make it. So, it didn't work out. He missed. Kickers miss. And, when we were saying that he's left-footed and, that just, those are not excuses. Those are just, facts about the fact that it's a little bit different, and it just changes things. So there was a lot of variable there. But you can't sit here and say Daboll's trash and he's not a good coach. This was the coach of the year 2 years ago.
Exactly.
Like his first year on the scene, he came in and completely changed the culture around here. We won games. We won week 1 on the road against Tennessee. He went for 2. Boom. It worked. All of a sudden, it sparked everything. And everybody was like, man, this guy's an unbelievable coach. He's the coach of the year. He's the best thing since sliced bread. And now 2 years later, he doesn't know how to coach. I don't buy that. I'm sorry, Wilson. I'm not buying that, and I'm not listening to what you're saying, because he is a damn good coach. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of damn good coaches on this. Guess what? Good coaches get fired. Bill Belichick doesn't have a job right now, all right? He might go down as the best coach in the history of the game. So good coaches get fired because of the circumstance and what's going on. I understand that. Daboll understands that. It's a business. It happens. But the problem is when you start blaming the coaches for the players not executing. Mm-hmm. All right, I coach my 11-year-old son's football team. You know how many damn times I've told them to combo block the defensive end to the middle linebacker on a play, and they go out and mess it up. Am I a bad coach, or did they just not listen? Did they not execute? So I hear what you're saying. The coaches get the blame. Coach Coffey used to always stand up in front of us. When we lose, it's my fault. When we win, it's you guys' credit. Like, you guys get the all the fame. Coaches take all the blame. So Daboll understands that. That's the nature of the business. But don't tell me that they didn't tell Devin Singletary, have the ball in your left arm. Don't have the ball in your right arm. All right? Then it's going to get punched out. That's not coaching. That's executing. That's the players. Like, as a player, I always felt like I'm letting my coach down if I mess up. If I have a mental error or if I get beat, I let my coach down because he told me what not to do, and yet I just didn't execute. So to me, it's always more on the players than the coaches. Are there times where coaches mess up, or that maybe they make a bad call? Yeah, and 99% of the time, they own up to it and hey, look, that was a bad call. That was on me. I shouldn't have called that play, or they got us on that one. So there are times when you kind of win and lose, but look, I mean, if you're already mailing it in, there's nothing that I can say to bring you back. That's fine. That's, you got to carry that cross. But I think to give up on Daboll and to give up on this team right now, it's a little premature. Look, they've got a tough road ahead of them, and their only way to fight out of this brown paper bag right now is you got to punch. You got to keep punching. You got to find a way. I think this team will do that. And you know what? You can go on a run. Sometimes all you need is one victory, and then that just kind of springboards you. And now all of a sudden, boom! Look, nobody thought the Saints could beat the Cowboys, and they throttled them. Alvin Kamara had a monster game. So, you can win on any given Sunday. And I think for the Giants and for Daboll, look, they're not cashing it in. They know this is a long season. The Cincinnati Bengals started out 0-2 a couple years ago. They played the Rams in the Super Bowl. We did it in 2007. It's not ideal, but we were talking before last week about go 2-2 in September. Yeah. So you got to win this game, and then you worry about Dallas, and then maybe you can find a way to win that game, and now you're right back to 2-2.
Yeah, the most important game of the season is the one that's right in front of you. And this week, it is the Shaun O'Hara Bowl, the Giants and the Browns on Sunday. And you know what? We'll keep, trucking along. And like you said, there's a lot of unexpected plot twists in September. Nobody expected the Ravens to start 0-2. Nobody expected to see, what we've seen from the Saints offense. Nobody expected, a lot of what we have seen across the league, and it'll all level itself out as the season progresses. And the conversations that we're having in September won't be the same as that we're having in November, December.
Raise your hand if you thought Sam Darnold would be 2-0 and that the Vikings would beat the Niners.
Exactly. Nobody. So, when J.J.
You're not
McCarthy
who you
goes
think
down,
you are through the first 2 weeks.
Nope. Who am I? I am. What is that? The bowling guy. And before we wrap up our show, we just have to give a warm congratulations to our colleague, the man who has the office decorated with perhaps the most bobbleheads I have ever seen. One, Eli Manning, Shaun O'Hara's co-host, quarterback, teammate, who is officially nominated for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So congratulations, Eli Manning. That is a huge honor. First year eligible, and he is nominated for the Hall.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw that news kind of come out a little bit ago, rightfully so. I think that there's been much debate about Eli and his Hall of Fame status. I've got my own opinion on the Hall of Fame and what players should be in and what players shouldn't. First of all, on a macro level, like, I don't like the fact there's a limit. Why is there only 5 guys allowed every year? Like,
right.
Do it like baseball. If a guy gets 20 votes, he's in.
Right.
And you could have 10 guys go in one year. You could have 6 guys go in one year. The fact that some guys that deserve to be in have to wait a couple extra years just because somebody else leapfrogged them, I don't think that's right. I think that kind of taints the whole process a little bit. But for Eli, look, there's 2 ways to me that make you a lock for the Hall of Fame. Are you the best of your position throughout your career or through a period of time in your career? Or are you somebody that did something that nobody else has done in the history of the game? And can they write the history of the NFL during your time without some of your accomplishments and without talking about you? So I think Eli definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And please don't mess this up. The Super Bowl is in New Orleans this year.
Right. Come
Eli
on.
grew up in New Orleans. His dad played for the Saints. Like, everything's lined up right now.
Very
we're all counting on you, Striker. Land the damn plane. All right?
Land the damn plane. And, hey, who knows? You might see Giants in the Hall of Fame game next year if that's the case.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that would be perfect. I think the Giants would welcome that opportunity. And who doesn't like Canton in August?
Right?
Or July.
Who doesn't?
Whenever the game is.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Exactly. It's, great on the TripAdvisor.
Yeah.
Lots of good things to say.
Yeah, we got to go to Cedar Point. For those of you that have ever been, if you're a roller coaster fanatic, if you like
Let's go.
roller coasters, Cedar Point is, that's one of my favorite. I used to go all the time when I lived in Ohio. It's phenomenal.
It'll be fun. Wishing Eli the best of luck as well as all the nominees this year. But, at the end of the day, gold jacket, green jacket, who gives a hoot, right? Sorry. I'm doing a show with Shaun. I have to throw out movie quotes.
I don't know. Yeah, green jacket. Yeah, I don't think that's in his forecast.
No, definitely no green
jacket. The blue jacket. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe green jacket.
Maybe green jacket. You never know. He's been hitting the links, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's on 5 days a week, I think.
All right.
He's working on it.
Working on it. All right, that's a wrap for our show today. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Big Blue Kickoff Live, brought to you by Cadillac. It's part of the Giants podcast platforms everywhere and giants.com/podcast. For Shaun O'Hara, I'm Madelyn Burke. We'll see you next time.